how you see the world is often defined by where you come from. Now, I'm a Hindu.
True.
Hinduism is most probably among the most ancient living religions on earth.
Yeah.
And Hinduism is a part of the Dharmic group of religions, which also includes Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. In many ways, our worldview is fundamentally different from the Abrahamic group of religions. The Abrahamic group, as you all know, is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and could be argued that Western atheism, which emerged as a reaction to the Abrahamic religions.
Hey there, beautiful humans. You just saw that viral clip of Amish Tripathi dropping a truth bomb on Hinduism. He said the universe itself, everything with a beginning and an end, is just Maya, an illusion. And if that's true, then your body, your job, even time itself, might not be as real as you think. But here's what they didn't tell you. If Hindu philosophy is right, then the entire Western idea of truth versus lie, heaven versus hell, real versus fake collapses. And suddenly, the fight isn't just religious. It's civilizational. Picture this. One worldview sees life in black and white. Good versus evil. God versus devil. Heaven or hell. That's the Abrahamic frame. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. You're born once. You live once. You die once. Then judgment. Forever in paradise or forever in torment. No second chances. No gray areas. The rules are clear. The other worldview? The Dharmic lens, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism. It sees shades of gray. Cycles of time. Nothing absolute. Everything temporary. You're not born once. You're born thousands of times. Death isn't the end. It's a doorway. Good and evil aren't enemies. They're partners in the cosmic dance. Even the gods die and are reborn. Now imagine what happens when these two ways of seeing reality collide. For centuries, they didn't just collide. They crashed. When European colonizers arrived in India, they carried more than guns and ships. They carried a worldview. A binary worldview. And when they looked at Hindu philosophy, they saw chaos. They saw idol worship. They saw superstition. But what happened next was worse. Colonial empires took that binary worldview and branded Dharmic thought as primitive. Libraries burned. The Nalanda University, once the greatest learning center in the world, with thousands of manuscripts, reduced to ashes by invaders. Temples destroyed, their stones used to build mosques and forts. Centuries of philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, erased. Imagine this. You're a scholar in ancient India. You've spent your life mastering texts that explain the nature of consciousness, the mathematics of infinity, the cycles of the cosmos. Then foreign armies arrive. They call your work devil worship. They burn your books. They tell you that your entire civilization's understanding of reality is wrong. That's not just conquest. That's epistemic violence. The murder of knowledge itself. And here's the tragic part. It worked. For generations, Indians themselves began to believe it. They looked at their own traditions through colonial eyes. They started calling their own philosophies backward. They abandoned Sanskrit. They forgot their own history. But let's pause here. Because this isn't just ancient history. This pattern repeats everywhere colonization touched. Indigenous worldviews, whether Native American, African, Aboriginal Australian, all dismissed as primitive. All replaced with the binary framework. All told, our way is the only way. Fast forward to today. Something's shifting. That same philosophy dismissed as illusion is roaring back. Steve Jobs traveled to India seeking enlightenment. Mark Zuckerberg asked for blessings at a temple. Sundar Pichai credits Hindu philosophy for shaping his thinking. Meditation apps fill your phone. Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer. All rooted in Dharmic practices. Yoga studios pop up in every Western city. Concepts like karma, dharma, chakras, words that didn't exist in mainstream Western vocabulary 50 years ago, are now household terms. The very wisdom dismissed as illusion is shaping billion-dollar industries. But here's where it gets interesting. Let's go deeper into what Amish actually said. Because his point about Maya isn't what most people think. Western translations call Maya illusion and stop there. But that's incomplete. Maya doesn't mean things don't exist. It means they are temporary, transient, not eternal. The Sanskrit root means to measure or to limit. Maya is what gives form to the formless. What makes the infinite appear finite? Think about it like this. Is a wave real? Yes, you can see it, measure it, surf on it. But is it separate from the ocean? No. It's just the ocean temporarily taking a shape. The wave is real as a function. It exists, it has impact. But it's not ultimately separate or permanent. That's Maya. Your body is real, but it's temporary. Your thoughts are real, but they're constantly changing. Your identity is real, but it's not fixed. Cosmology expands and contracts in cycles lasting billions of years. Now here's where Amish insight becomes explosive. If we accept that definition, then what else is Maya? Money. Just paper and digital numbers. Yet wars are fought over it. Lives destroyed or saved by it. It functions as real because we collectively agree it's real. Nations. Just lines on maps. Borders that didn't exist 200 years ago. Yet people die defending them. Identities are built around them. Maya, power and the fight for legitimacy laws. Just words in books. Yet they determine who's free and who's imprisoned. Even scientific facts. We once knew the Earth was flat. We knew the sun revolved around us. We knew atoms were the smallest particles. Each truth was later proven to be just one level of understanding, not ultimate reality. So who decides what's real? You. Your government. Your faith. Your culture. And here's the philosophical earthquake. If function determines reality, then gods and myths are just as real as atoms and equations. Because they function. They shape behavior. They create meaning. They organize societies. A crucifix isn't just wood and metal. It functions as a symbol that's inspired billions, built civilizations, sparked wars. The Bhagavad Gita isn't just ancient poetry. It functions as a guide that shaped leaders, philosophers, scientists for millennia. Bitcoin isn't just code. It functions as money because enough people agree it does. Reality, in this view, is participatory. We are not discovering what's real. We are creating it through collective agreement and function. Now, let's talk about why this matters today. Why this isn't just philosophy, it's power. When India gained independence in 1947, it inherited a colonial education system. An education system designed to produce clerks and administrators for the British Empire. An education system that taught Indian children their own heritage was primitive. For decades, that continued. Indian intellectuals spoke English, not Sanskrit. They studied Western philosophy, not Vedanta. They celebrated Western achievements while downplaying their own. But something's changed in the last 20 years. India's rising. Economically, technologically, geopolitically. And with that rise comes a question. Whose worldview defines the future? This isn't abstract. It's playing out in real time. When India's government rewrites textbooks to include more indigenous history, Western media calls it nationalism. When India asserts its cultural identity, it's called Hindu fundamentalism. When India builds a grand temple in Ayodhya, global headlines scream religious tension. But imagine the reverse. When European countries protect their cultural heritage, it's called preservation. When America promotes its values globally, it's called democracy. When the Vatican influences billions, it's called faith. The same actions, different labels. Why? Because worldviews are in competition. And whoever controls the narrative controls what's considered legitimate. Here's where it gets personal. Imagine you're a young Hindu growing up in the West. You go to school and learn about Greek mythology, but it's called mythology. You learn about Norse gods, but they're called legends. You learn about Egyptian beliefs, but they're called ancient superstitions. Then you learn about your own tradition. And sometimes, it's also called mythology. Your gods are studied like artifacts. Your practices are exoticized. Your festivals are cultural curiosities. But when you learn about Christianity or Islam, the tone shifts. These are religions. These are faiths. These are living traditions. The subtle message, these are real in a way yours isn't. That's the power of framing. That's what happens when one worldview dominates the institutions, the universities, the media, the publishing houses. That define what's legitimate. Now imagine airports filled with protests, diaspora communities demanding textbooks be changed, governments redrawing curricula, social media exploding with hashtags. One side yelling ancient wisdom deserves respect. The other side yelling dangerous nationalism is rising. Both sides convinced they're fighting for truth, neither recognizing they're fighting from different definitions of what truth even means. Here's the pattern break. What if both sides are right? What if both are trapped in Maya? The secular humanist who dismisses all religion as superstition, trapped in the Maya of believing materialist science is ultimate truth. The religious fundamentalist who claims only their path leads to God, trapped in the Maya of believing their limited understanding is infinite truth. The nationalist who thinks their culture is superior, trapped in the Maya of believing temporary identities are permanent realities. The globalist who thinks culture doesn't matter, trapped in the Maya of believing abstract universalism erases particular human needs. What if the real illusion is thinking any single framework captures complete reality? Let's go even deeper. Amish mentions something profound. Everything with a beginning and an end is Maya. Let's explore what that actually means for your life. Your body had a beginning, conception. It will have an end, death. So your body is Maya. But you don't identify as just a body, do you? You feel like there's something inside, something experiencing the body. Atman, Maya and the cosmic game your thoughts began when your brain developed. They'll end when your brain stops. So thoughts are Maya too. But again, you feel like there's something watching the thoughts, something aware of them. Your personality, shaped by childhood, culture, experiences. It's changed dramatically from when you were 5 years old. It'll change again by the time you're 80. So personality is Maya. Yet something feels continuous through all those changes. Your name, your nationality, your job title, your relationships, your beliefs, all began at some point. All will end at some point. All Maya. So what's left? What's the you that's experiencing all these temporary forms? Hindu philosophy says, that's Atman, the witness, the consciousness that's aware of the body, the thoughts, the personality, the life circumstances, but isn't identical to any of them. And here's the radical claim. That Atman isn't individual. It's not yours. It's universal. The same consciousness looking out through every pair of eyes. Brahman appearing as many. The ocean appearing as waves. If that's true, and I mean really true, not just intellectually understood but directly experienced, then the implications are staggering. Every person you meet is literally you in another form. Every conflict is you fighting yourself. Every act of kindness is you loving yourself. Every act of cruelty is you harming yourself. Borders between me and you are Maya. Distinctions between human and animal are Maya. Even the gap between observer and observed is Maya. This isn't poetry. This is the direct experience reported by mystics, meditators, and sages across centuries. And increasingly, it's what some physicists are pointing toward when they explore consciousness and quantum mechanics. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. If this worldview spreads, really spreads, not just as Instagram wisdom but as lived experience, what happens to society? Why would you chase wealth? If the self that wants wealth is temporary, why would you fight wars? If the enemy is just another expression of the same consciousness, why would you fear death? If what you are never dies. This is why every empire that encountered Dharmic philosophy tried to suppress it. Not because it's false, but because it's destabilizing. You can't build empires with people who see through the illusion of power. You can't sustain inequality with people who experience unity. You can't maintain control with people who've transcended fear. The British didn't just conquer India militarily. They conquered it psychologically. They replaced a worldview that questioned the reality of material success with a worldview that worshipped it. They replaced a spirituality of liberation with a religion of obedience. And it worked. Until it didn't. Because here's the thing about Maya. You can ignore it, but you can't escape it. The illusion eventually reveals itself. The empire eventually crumbles. The identity eventually shifts. The certainty eventually cracks. We are living through that cracking right now. Not just in India. Everywhere. People in the West are disillusioned with materialism. Despite unprecedented wealth, mental health crises explode in the most successful societies. The more we achieve, the less fulfilled we feel. That's Maya revealing itself. Traditional religions are losing followers, but spirituality is booming. People aren't rejecting meaning, they're rejecting rigid binaries. They're seeking experience over doctrine. That's Maya revealing itself. Nations that seemed permanent are fragmenting. Borders that seemed fixed are being questioned. Identities that seemed solid are becoming fluid. That's Maya revealing itself. The old worldview promised, work hard, follow the rules, believe the right things, and you'll be secure. But the universe doesn't work that way. Change is the only constant. Impermanence is the only permanence. Maya is the only truth. So what do we do with this? How do we live if everything's an illusion? Here's what Hindu philosophy actually teaches. You don't reject Maya. You engage with it consciously. You play the game while knowing it's a game. You take it seriously without taking it literally. You love your family, knowing relationships are temporary forms of eternal connection. You build your career, knowing success is a temporary expression of timeless creativity. You fight for justice, knowing all conflicts are cosmic play. You stop confusing the map for the territory, the menu for the meal, the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself. This is why Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, fight the war, play your role, but don't identify with the outcome. Act without attachment to the fruits of action. It sounds contradictory. How can you fight wholeheartedly while being detached? But that's the point. You can fight with full intensity. When you're not burdened by fear of losing, you can create. The final twist, Maya, awareness and you with full passion when you're not attached to the result. You can love with full heart when you're not grasping at permanence. This is the wisdom that's re-emerging, not as escape from reality, but as freedom within it. And this brings us back to Amish's viral moment. Why did it explode? Because somewhere deep down, people know. They know something's off about how we've been taught to see the world. They know the binary thinking isn't working. They know there's more to reality than what we've been told. When Amish said the universe is Maya, he wasn't insulting reality. He was liberating it. He was saying, yes, everything you experience is real, just not in the way you think. It's real as a wave, not as a separate ocean. It's real as a dream, not as solid matter. It's real as a story, not as an absolute fact. And when you see it that way, everything shifts. The pressure to be perfect disappears, because perfection is just another temporary idea. The fear of death dissolves, because what you really are was never born. The need to prove yourself vanishes, because there's no separate self that needs proving. You start living from presence instead of pursuing, from being instead of becoming, from consciousness instead of thought. This is the revolution happening quietly beneath all the noise, beneath the political battles and culture wars and social media storms. Something deeper is stirring. People are waking up, not to a new truth, but to an ancient recognition, not to a foreign philosophy, but to what they've always sensed but couldn't articulate. The West is remembering what the East never fully forgot. Reality is participatory. Consciousness is primary. Unity is fundamental. And the separate self struggling to survive in a hostile world, that's the ultimate Maya. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just intellectually agree or disagree with what Amish said. Test it. Investigate your own experience. Sit quietly and watch your thoughts. Notice that you're aware of them, so you can't be identical to them. Notice that thoughts come and go, but awareness remains. That's already pointing beyond Maya. Look at something you consider absolutely real. Your body, your possessions, your identity. Now remember that everything you're looking at was completely different 10 years ago, and will be completely different 10 years from now. What exactly is the permanent thing you're calling real? Think about someone you strongly disagree with. Now recognize that you both want the same thing: happiness, security, meaning, love. You just have different ideas about how to get there. Those ideas are Maya. The wanting beneath them is universal. This isn't about becoming Hindu or Buddhist or anything else. This is about seeing clearly, about questioning assumptions, about discovering what's true through direct experience rather than inherited belief. Because here's the final twist. Even everything I've just said is Maya. This video is Maya. These words are Maya. The person speaking them is Maya. And the person listening is Maya. But the awareness experiencing all of it? That's not Maya. That's what you are beneath all the temporary forms. That's what Amish was pointing to. That's what every sage across every tradition has pointed to with different words. Sat Chit Ananda. Being, consciousness, bliss. Not something you achieve. Something you are. Always have been. Always will be. Just temporarily forgotten while playing hide and seek with yourself. The universe is Maya, and you are both the dreamer and the dream. So after hearing Amish tripathi, do you think Hinduism is exposing the biggest illusion humanity is trapped in? Or is this just another cultural clash dressed up as philosophy? Drop your take below, because this is one debate that won't end in black and white. Thanks for watching. Stay curious. Stay questioning. And remember, reality is a lot stranger and more beautiful than any worldview can capture.